My name is Delaney Rhodess. For 18 years, my family believed I walked away, out of the Air Force Academy, out of discipline, out of our legacy. In their eyes, I abandoned a proud military tradition and disappeared into civilian mediocrity. No one ever asked what I did instead. Not really, they'd already written my ending. Every Christmas in Asheville, my younger brother Carter's rising rank in the Air Force was toasted like gospel. My parents glowed at him the way they once did at my grandfather's wings. Framed in glass, I showed up with bakery pie, because that's all they expected from me. Once, my aunt leaned in with her pearls in pity and whispered, "So sweet of you to still visit, dear." She said that 2 days after I'd returned from a covert mission briefing in Brussels. To them, I was still the dropout with good posture. When I turned 30, I gave up hoping they'd see me. By 36, I stopped going altogether. Until last month. I went to Carter's ceremony, promotion to full colonel, full honors, not to be polite, to see if I still existed in their world. I wore a muted navy dress and flats, civilian camouflage, or so I thought. Midway through the ceremony, General Harland entered the hangar. He scanned the rows and stopped cold on me. Then, he squared his shoulders and saluted. "Ma'am, Senior Strategic Attaché Rhodes, it's an honor." The room fell silent, heads turned, not for Carter, not for my father, for me. I was born in Dayton, Ohio, where failure wasn't allowed and flight was sacred. My father, Brigadier General Dean Rhodess, raised us like soldiers. My mother, a trauma nurse, ran the house like triage. Dinner conversations were military code, NORAD, AWACS, SOF, no birthdays, no softness. I joined the academy at 17. That should have been enough. But in my family, pride needed headlines, medals, commendations, color guards. So when I left without a diploma and never explained why, they assumed the worst. They didn't ask. They didn't want the truth. The truth wasn't theirs to have. I was quietly recruited into a joint strategic initiative operating beyond the visible chain of command. No ceremony, no record, just a signature, a burned ID, and an exit into a program that didn't officially exist. The Advanced Strategic Intelligence Directive, ASID. Civilian on paper, military in consequence. My job, identify threats before they detonated. Build deterrence before presidents even knew there was something to fear. Every mission was deniable. Every win, unspoken. To my family, I was the dropout in a DC cardigan, writing memos for middle management. One 4th of July, I stood 15 feet from my father as he told a neighbor, "Carter, boots on the ground in Kandahar. Delaney, works near the Pentagon, makes slides." 2 weeks earlier, I had greenlit a cyber pivot that stopped a targeted attack in Vilnius. But that wasn't prideworthy, not to them. They framed uniforms, not silence. Carter had the career they could point to, commissioned young, deployed, decorated, and he earned every honor, but his shine gave them cover to forget me. I sent gifts over the years, Mom's gardenias, vintage rye for Dad, a college fund deposit for Carter's daughter, never got a thank you. A cousin once slipped up and told me they didn't say my name anymore. "It just upsets your mom," she said. That same cousin once sent a family photo from the lake house. I had been there. In her version, I was cropped out. To keep it symmetrical, she claimed. I kept both photos, not out of hurt, but as proof. That was when I stopped wondering if I was invisible. I wasn't. I'd been erased. Still, I watched from a distance. I saw Carter's promotions, heard his speech at Ramstein. He used a line I'd written for a classified brief. He didn't know I'd hear it. Or maybe he did. Maybe he never stopped serving. I just stopped showing up. Then came the call. Early November, the DC air was sharp, metallic, the kind that slices through wool and memory. I'd just finished a session with the Cyber Defense Integration Unit when my phone buzzed. The name glowed like a flare from a past life. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Her voice was tight, controlled, not cold, just drained. "Carter's being promoted next week. Full colonel. Ceremonies at Wright-Patterson. You should come." "No, how are you?" "No, we'd love to see you. Just, don't wear anything strange. And please don't make it about you." I said I'd be there. Not for them. Not for closure. I needed to see if I could stand in that house and not shrink at the sound of my name. That night, I opened the storage closet. At the back, wrapped in plastic, hung the dark gray uniform they'd never seen. Streamlined, unmarked, non-military issue, clearances stitched into the seams. I left it behind. Instead, I chose a slate blouse, tailored trousers, low black heels, civilian enough to disappear, let them look away from what they never dared to see. The 6-hour drive to Dayton was bare trees and silence. I didn't rehearse, no fantasy confrontations, just asphalt and winter air. I arrived before dusk. The porch was swept, the flag hung perfectly straight. I knocked, then let myself in. Mom was at the dining table arranging place cards. Without looking up, she said, "Change your shirt. You're sitting next to Carter. Don't distract from tomorrow." No hello, no welcome, just orders. Like I'd never left. The dining room hadn't changed, same wallpaper, same centered photo of Carter receiving his silver bar, perfectly lit. Dad came in next, pressed khakis, hair still regulation short. He nodded. "You made it." No hug, no question. Just a head count. Dinner before the ceremony was tight. Family filled the long table, Carter's COs, a junior officer I vaguely recognized from a Christmas newsletter, and a neighbor who called me Danielle. I didn't correct her. If you've ever felt invisible in the one place that was supposed to see you, you're not alone. Subscribe to the channel. Join me in the next chapter, where a single salute cut louder than years of silence. Carter entered like a recruitment poster come to life. Dress blues immaculate, buttons gleaming, ribbons aligned with surgical precision. He moved through the room like a candidate shaking hands at a fundraiser, smiles rehearsed, nods practiced, every gesture clean. When he reached my end of the table, he gave a vague two-finger wave in my direction, just enough to acknowledge me, not enough to name me. "This is my sister, Delaney," he said. "She started at the academy, took a different path. She does something administrative now, back in D.C., I think." Laughter spilled across the table, light, careless, dismissive. I swallowed hard and smiled. The neighbor next to me leaned in again. "Still good, though," she offered, lips stretched in a hopeful smile. "Better than nothing, right?" I smiled with my mouth, not my eyes. "Sure," I said, and spooned another bite of custard from its little glass dish. Sweet, generic, designed to please, never to stand out. Then Dad stood to raise a glass. "To Carter," he said, "to service, to discipline, and to sons who finish what they start." Everyone drank. I raised mine, didn't sip. Carter tapped his fork gently against his glass, just enough to pull focus, not enough to seem showy. "The Air Force," he said, "has taught me many things. Chief among them, walking away isn't always courage. Sometimes, it's surrender." Laughter, a nod from Dad, a proud hand from an old CO on Carter's back. It was aimed, not subtle, a dig wrapped in formal wear, sealed with applause. And it had my name inside it like a bullet in an envelope. I didn't respond. I'd learned long ago that silence could be sharper than any retort. After dinner, while conversation drifted toward the hallway portraits, I slipped into the den. The walls were lined with history, Dad in Germany, Carter in full combat gear, even Mom, young, focused, standing outside a field hospital in fatigues. Not a single photo of me, not since 2003. One frame had a space I remembered clearly. I had stood there once, between Carter and Dad. They'd centered the image, removed the ghost. I kept the original. Outside, wind stirred the dead leaves. I stepped onto the porch and let the door close quietly behind me. The air was dry, sharp, the kind of cold that doesn't sting, it hums. Somewhere beyond the trees, a brass ensemble rehearsed, notes floating, then dissolving like unfinished thoughts. I sat on the top step, elbows on knees, watching the streetlights blink on across our old Dayton neighborhood. Inside, laughter rolled through the windows, warm, familiar, close to me. Tomorrow, I'd play the role, sit still, clap on cue, vanish when the applause faded. Let Carter shine. That was always the assignment. But truth doesn't wait for timing. It doesn't knock first. It arrives. unapologetic, and lets the silence do the rest. Wright-Patterson's auditorium gleamed the flag-lined, brass-trimmed, perfectly arranged, chairs labeled by rank and relation. They sat me near the back, between a teenage niece taking selfies and a junior officer's girlfriend scrolling her phone. Carter stood at the podium, perfect as ever, voice measured, expression composed. His speech hit every beat: duty, perseverance, country. Then came the blade in the velvet glove. In this life of service, we learn to honor those who wear the uniform, and to remember those who walked away from it. No surprise, I'd heard versions of that for years, his, my father's, even my mother's silence. But then, as he turned the next page, the auditorium doors creaked open. A hush spread through the room like ink on linen. A tall figure entered, dark uniform, silver hair, authority in every step. General Nathaniel Merrill. He didn't speak, just scanned the room and stopped on me. His spine straightened. Then, without a word, he walked down the aisle, each step crisp, measured, intentional. When he reached my row, he paused and saluted. "Ma'am, Senior Strategic Attaché Rhodes, an honor to see you again." The room froze. Carter's voice faltered. My mother dropped her water glass. The shatter cracked through the silence. My father began to stand, then slowly sank back into his seat, his face stone, his jaw locked. Heads turned, whispers sparked like static. Did he say strategic attaché? Wait, that's Delaney? I thought she left the academy. I rose. Not for recognition, but to return the respect. "General Merrill," I said evenly, voice clear. "Always a privilege." From the front row, a junior captain leaned toward his CO. "That's the one from the Talon protocols," he whispered. I thought she was a ghost story. Carter tried to recover, mouth still moving, but the rhythm was gone. The gravity in the room had shifted, quietly, irrevocably. For the first time, the eyes weren't on him. They were on me. The ceremony ended in polite, scattered applause. The kind people give when they're not sure what they've just witnessed. Outside, families formed islands of celebration. I stood by the side exit, calm, unnoticed, until Carter found me. His footsteps hit the concrete sharp and fast. "You let me go up there like that?" he hissed. I met his eyes. "Like what?" "Like a joke," he snapped. "You didn't say anything, you just stood there." I stood still. I said, "You were the one who defined me out loud." His expression flickered. So that was the plan. "Humiliate me," he muttered. "Hijack the moment." "If your moment only exists in my silence," I said softly, "then maybe it was never really yours." I didn't wait for more. I walked away, unhurried, steady. Behind me, I could feel the press of recalibration, people reshuffling what they thought they knew. Let them. They'd spent years erasing me. They could take a minute to redraw the ending. That night, back at my base quarters, standard issue bed, buzzing desk lamp, towel folded like an apology, I found a manila envelope. No label, no seal. Inside, a printed scan of an email, time-stamped 2 years earlier. It accused DM Rhodes of approving an unlogged op in Yemen, one allegedly tied to civilian casualties. The language was precise, too precise. I recognized it. I'd seen that phrasing before, in a classified after-action report I'd reviewed in Brussels. The report had passed through 3 hands. One of them was Carter's. A chill moved through me. At the time, I'd been pulled into a discreet internal audit. Nothing stuck. The system flagged it as a false anomaly and moved on. But now, holding this, the smoke hadn't cleared. It had just been buried. I found Carter on the back patio of the officers' lounge. Phone in hand, drink half full, moonlight on concrete. I said nothing, just held up the page. His eyes flicked to mine, then the paper. He froze. "Yes," he said quietly. I said it. He swallowed, his jaw tight. "Because you weren't supposed to win." I didn't speak. "I stayed," he said. "I followed every rule. You disappeared. But they still whispered your name. Even when you were gone, you cast a longer shadow. No bitterness, just exhaustion. You know, I said. Leaking intelligence is a federal crime. I wasn't trying to leak intel, he said. Just doubt. I looked at him, my brother, the face on the poster, the man in the frame. You planted that doubt in me long ago, I said. But I never let it grow. The next morning, I submitted a request to lead the investigation. Unconventional, but I still held reserve clearance. And I had motive. General Merrill approved it without hesitation. Clean it up, he said, and don't pull punches. The task force was small. Myself, 2 cybersecurity officers, and 3 people I never expected to work beside again. My father. My mother. Carter. Dad combed archived comms, his post-retirement clearance still active. Mom handled metadata, precise, surgical. Carter was assigned legacy vulnerabilities, his old maps, now under scrutiny. A poetic kind of penance. The air was cold. Words were few. But the work was real. 3 days in, our AI flagged a dormant Trojan in a 2017 logistics archive. Never triggered until someone accessed it through a backdoor server. The logs confirmed it. The credentials used were Carter's. 2 nights before his promotion ceremony. He hadn't meant to detonate it. But carelessness still has fallout. When I confronted him, he didn't deny it. I just wanted to peel back the curtain, he murmured. I didn't know there were landmines behind it. I didn't scold. I didn't smirk. You lit the match, I said. But I'll put out the fire. He nodded. Eyes down. That night, I reviewed the final patch. The breach was sealed. But some cracks don't close with code. 2 weeks later, I stood behind a podium at the DC Strategy Summit. No ribbons, no medals, just a nameplate. Delaney Rhodess, Senior Strategic Attaché. I presented on asymmetric threat modeling. But I ended with something I'd never said aloud. A night in Kirkuk. A choice that saved children but cost me my name. I made that call, I said. Because children were inside. And I'd make it again. In the second row, Carter, dress blues flawless, listened in silence. When I stepped down, I handed him the mic. He cleared his throat. I used to believe visibility was everything, he said. But now I know, some of the strongest among us are the ones no one sees coming. That night, we took a new family photo. No edits. No omissions. Later, Carter handed me a cake box. Chocolate, blue icing. Sister. Leader. Ghost, no more. For the first time in years, I wasn't a visitor in my own story. I'd carried silence like armor. But sometimes, your voice is the bridge. Drop a comment below. Tell me what strength means to you. What would you have done? If you've ever been underestimated, erased, or overlooked, you're not alone. Let's build something that sees us. Together.